essential to life requirement, and more than 70% of Earth's surface is covered by water. Most of organisms can survive without food, but cannot without water. Water is one of our most valuable resources.
Water is also a basic natural resources for our daily life. It has many uses that we can use. For example, drinking, transportation, and agriculture.
Our environments are mutually bound to each other. The same also applies to the water pollution. This contamination occurs due to the destructive nature of human beings, handling and use of land resulting in soil erosion, and eventually this land will be entering into a river, and resulted the river became muddy.
Water quality is always affected by the wide range of human and natural factors. The most important natural influences are hydrological, geological, and climatic, because it is not only affected by the quality of the water itself, but it is also affected by the quantity of the water available.
Pollution begins when humans started discarding waste, including toxic chemicals and sewage, into the environment. Water pollution occurs when pollutants are not treated properly to remove harmful compounds that are discharged into the water bodies.
The water pollution is not only affecting the individual species in water bodies and populations, but it is also affecting in the natural biological communities. The consistent and the rapid growth of the urban industry in Malaysia has undoubtedly resulted in increase in economic well-being of the citizens. However, they had led to water pollution around the regions of the country.
Objective of case study. First, to examine the trends of development-induced water pollution around regions of the country. Second, to know where the problems are and the policy measures taken by the government. Third, to identify the central fact of the locations of the problem. Lastly, to find alternative course of action and recommendation to improve water quality.
The point sources of water pollution in agro-based inventory sources comprise of palm oil mill effluent and natural rubber processing effluent. For the enforcement of water pollution control policy on crude palm oil industry, Department of Environment focus increasingly more on prevention rather than curative measures. The enforcement of the policy instruments via regulation were further strengthened by escalating the degree of stringency of measures, particularly against repeat offender. The main issue is the lack of adequate maintenance of the effluent treatment system. Lack of adequate maintenance of their effluent treatment system was the principal offence for the non-compliant cases. By this, Department of Environment has intensified its enforcement activity and focus on problematic sources of water pollution. In other words, steps were taken to enhance accreditation in an effluent scheme known as Scheme Akreditasi Makmal Sains (SAMM). To intensify its enforcement programs, Department of Environment organised a workshop on environmental quality management in plantation industry at the Palm Oil Research Institute of Malaysia headquarters. The main agenda under discussion was the government's concern for water pollution by palm oil mills and non-compliance to the stipulated effluent discharge standard. One of the resolutions of the workshop was the need to form a joint working group. It is to review and monitor a new generation of water course discharge standards for the plantation industry. The other issue discussed was the proposed waiver on the effluent-related fee for land application or partly treated effluent. To tighten the aggregate of license issue, Department of Environment made two types of fee payable for obtaining a license. These were processing fee and effluent-related fees, which were estimated.
For the enforcement of pollution control policy on raw natural rubber factories,
The issue is many rubber mills had expanded their production outputs without a corresponding increase in the capacity of their effluent treatment plants. As a result, the effluents being discharged, which is exceed the policy of raw natural rubber regulation. In order to overcome the issue, the legal action were taken against 8 raw natural rubber industry for repeated violation of the standards. In its efforts to strengthen the water pollution control programs, DOE held a dialogue with the Federation of Rubber Trade Associations of Malaysia about the issues related to odor control, improper seating and the needs for relocation of some smelly factories. Some of the rubber mills that not fully complying with the limit of effluent discharge as stipulated in license were taken to court. Besides, the other action is vigorous inspection to achieve success in water pollution control by looking at factory production process. The implementation of policy was very strict.
Enforcement of water pollution control policy on manufacturing industry. The enforcement of water pollution control policy on manufacturing industry that are related to regulations for sewage and industrial effluents. The focus of Departments of Environment were premises engaged in food and beverage production, palm oil refineries, textile, paper recycling mills, metal finishing works, and rubber product factories. The example of the program under the policy enforcements, the Departments of Environmental carried out a thorough inspection and found that the palm oil refineries lagged far behind. The reasons of the lack of a feasibility study of efficient technology equipment. Other enforcement implement is contravention license. It was also issued to those manufacturers industry facing the problems of repairing and constructing their incinerators or facilities to reduce pollution. Department of Environmental also took policy action to promote the installation of approach effluent treatment to cut back pollution such as zinc and other loads due to world demand for rubber gloves and condom has been increased.
The schedules of the DOE inspection were revised to be more cost-effective. Upon detections of violations of the compliance with the conditions, warning letters were issued to the concerned industries, while gross negligence cases were subjected to impositions of fine and prosecutions in court. A number of the food industries were unable to meet the required discharge standards, mainly due to improper maintenance of existing treatment plants and gross negligence in the operations of the treatment plants. Besides, the rubber-based industry continued to pose severe problems in relation to the disposal of vulcanized rubber waste. Not only that, many textile industries were still without proper effluent treatment systems, resulting in water pollution problems. Other than that, metal-based industry, especially electroplating, was unable to install sufficient facilities to treat its effluents containing heavy metal. There are similar problems of some rubber-based and textile industry associated with the lack of proper treatment system, especially stipulated COD and BOD standards. Basically, the majority of manufacturing industries were operating without efficient and appropriate treatment plans. To enable them to comply with the policy requirements, contravention licenses were issued to several industries, while Some applications were rejected due to the lack of sufficient data and genuine information about the contravening conditions expected by DOE.
Organic waste from animal husbandry continue to pose major environmental problems in Malaysia's water resources. It was found that the continuous discharge of untreated or partially treated human and animal waste, such as piggery waste, remain as major sources of organic pollution in Malaysian rivers. Among the characteristics of organic pollution from animal husbandry including contamination of ammoniacal nitrogen in rivers, contamination of heavy metals such as mercury, and excessive nutrient leakage into rivers that leads to eutrophication and increases of biochemical oxygen demand. Department of Environment have implemented several policy actions to control organic waste from animal husbandry and livestock farming. There are several strengths of the policy actions. Firstly is establishment of a task force to overcome problems using technology for treatments and disposal of pig waste. Secondly is strategic collaboration with relevant parties including Department of Environment, Standard and Industrial Research Institute of Malaysia, University Pertanian Malaysia, Department of Veterinary Services, the Chemistry Department, Ministry of Agriculture and Ministry of Health for greater impacts of water pollution control. Thirdly is introduction of a uniform federal law to harmonize the control of pig farm waste in various states. The fourth strength is collaborative enforcement by Department of Veterinary Services and Department of Environment to initiate a number of projects including the fourth strength is collaborative enforcement by Department of Veterinary Services and Department of Environment to initiate a number of projects in addressing water pollution from piggery waste and animal husbandry. The next strength is establishment of a task force and piggery waste management to draft guidelines and practical design criteria to assist farmers in upgrading their existing treatment facilities and constructing a new one. Lastly, Department of Environment also enforced that only large pig industry located in non-sensitive areas and capable of installing effluent system treatment. Lastly, Department of Environment also enforced that only large pig industry located in non-sensitive areas and capable of installing effluent treatment system were to be permitted to carry out operation. On the other hand, there are three weaknesses of the policy actions. First is lack of the usage of the technologies and expertise to operate treatment plants. Secondly is poor land management by using inadequate land for building or treatment plants for some pig farms. And last but not least is weak enforcement of policy of sewage and industrial effluent regulation. The government of Malaysia may foster the following recommendations for addressing water pollution caused by animal husbandry. First is by eliminating subsidies and adjusting taxes to make prices reflect true environmental costs. Secondly is establishing certification programs to encourage improved husbandry practice. Third is use of zoning regulation and taxes to discourage large concentration of intensive production close to cities and far from croplands where nutrients could be recycled. Last but not least, setting and enforcing standards for effluent discharge and recycling.
In terms of organic water pollution load, sewage and animal waste were the major contributors of water pollution, followed by manufacturing and agro-based industries in the countries. The removal of sewage from urban areas continues to pose problems for water resources in relation to its effective treatments and disposal. The bulk of sewage is water, which is rich in nitrates and phosphate. This is a major contributory factor to eutrophication downstreams and profoundly altering the characteristics of the aquatic ecosystems of some river systems. In 1997, 81 out of the total 118 rivers monitored by Department of Environment were polluted due to the biochemical oxygen demand pollution loads. They were mainly from agro-based industries such as palm oil, sewage, and manufacturing activities. In 1998,
43% of the total rivers monitored by Department of Environment were polluted by ammoniacal nitrogen discharge from both sewage and animal husbandry waste into the water resources. With regard to the control of municipal and industrial wastewater pollutions, environmental quality related to sewage and industrial effluents regulations was enacted in 1979. For the enforcement of water pollution control policy on sewage disposal, treatments of sewage discharge depends on the waterborne sewerage system available in the country. Over this period, sewerage systems were only available in a few places such as Georgetown, Shah Alam, Kuala Lumpur. These severages had to be extended to serve all households within these urban areas. Department of Environment signed an agreement with Indah Water Consortium Sdn. Under privatization's modality as a company working for the government to operate and maintain sewerage treatment facilities throughout the country. The Technical Working Group, which comprised the Department of Environment, the Sewerage Service Department and Indah Water Consortium, was established in July 1996 to discuss various operational issues faced by the Indah Water Consortium. The main objective was to facilitate compliance with Regulatory Policy Instrument of Sewerage Service Act 1993. Other enforcement actions carried out by Department of Environment during the period of 1997 to 2005 include operational inspections and surprise visits relating to industrial effluent discharge. Malaysia has 8,000 sewage plants and approximately 7,500 km length of sewers, mostly situated in urban areas, serving more than 12 million populations. The cost of developing a modern and efficient sewerage system is too expensive to be borne by the government. The consortium body has estimated that about 28 billion would be needed to build up new systems such as sewer reticulations and pumping stations, a centralized sewerage treatment plant catering for sewerage and sludge treatment within the next 28 years concession period. As such, a new sewerage tariff of at least 70% higher than the existing rates would be required to fund these additional works. The government has seriously reviewed this and finally approved a sewerage capital contributions rate of up to 1.65% of the property value to be levied on all properties except local.
IT